Is there any privacy-related thing that we're looking forward to in 2025? So get ready for some optimism, we hope. We're also going to talk about how to get used electronics and what are our favorite ways to do that are also safe. We're also going to talk about domains by proxy as a way to host and own domains in a private manner. And we're also going to talk about Passport Prime by Foundation and also polycentric identities for your channels like Fudo ID and whatnot. A lot of variety today. Welcome to the Q&A. All these questions come from one of two places. The first one comes from patrons on patreon.com/surveillancepod. These are people that are consistently giving back and making this whole podcast possible for our main episodes. So we can't do it with all of you. So thank you very much. And then we also have some one-time tippers on xmrchat.com. You can join both of these down in the description. XMR Chat, you pretty much just tip us Monero and include a message, and then we get to include those. And we don't know anything about who leaves them. So it's a great way for you to just get involved. So we're going to start with Parker's question. And he has two questions, but we're going to start with the highlight question first. Is there any privacy-related thing you're looking forward to in 2025? Maybe a new product or feature or some new strategy that you're planning to implement this year? I wanted to make a video about this on the Techlore side of things, but we didn't have enough time to make it happen. One of the big wins for me in 2024 was the normalization of aliasing services. This is really new. I mean, for those who haven't been in the space for a long time, simple login was a super new concept when it came out. The first time I covered simple login on my channel, I don't think there was many other people, if anyone, that did like a full YouTube video on simple login, and all the reactions were just like, whoa, this is crazy cool. And now DuckDuckGo has it, Apple has it, of course we know Simple Login has it, Addy.io has it. Feels like everyone now is starting to come up with
AdGuard just rolled one out.
You're right, AdGuard's another one. Am I making this up? Didn't Brave want to make one?
I think Brave's planning to. It's like something in like the merge requests or like a beta code or something. They haven't officially confirmed it, but allegedly there's strong evidence, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's been a really big win for the record, and I want to see that expand into 2025, and I hope that what we see more of is other places to alias. So email is capped out. Like you have like 6 good options to alias emails. We still need better phone number solutions. We did have JMP Chat as a sponsor of this podcast. They're no longer a sponsor, so we have no incentive to say that is a good step in the right direction. They're open source, and they give you real phone numbers that should work and give you a lot more control over your numbers. So super cool service, but I'd like to see more things like that this year. So that's something I'm looking forward to, assuming it happens. I am looking forward to, ideally, open source services just getting a little bit more developed. That's always something I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully Linux go up in usage. Hopefully not just because of gaming consoles that have Linux that run on them. So there's things that I'm optimistic about. I think overall, like, yes, things always look very gloomy in the space in terms of, there's attacks coming from all angles, from companies, governments, people. But I think I'm really excited to just see better technology come as a result of it. And we are seeing a lot of good services put good tech out there.
You don't really have any specifics because I don't really know anything specific that's coming up in terms of like any new features or new products or anything. New strategy, I don't really have anything on my radar. I'm doing some shuffling with where I'm hosting some of the services with the new oil, but that's more about like saving money than privacy, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, I really need to get back to using cash a lot more. I feel like I've been saying that for a while. I've already seen, slightly political here, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. I've already seen a pretty big surge in a lot of my friends and family expressing concern about the current political environment and wanting to care more about like how to protect their privacy while attending a peaceful protest or being more open to more privacy focused. Like I had one friend hit me up, was like, hey, I just bought a new phone. How do I set it up? What do I do? Things like that. And I mean, that one's not political specific. That friend always does that kind of stuff. And for the record, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Shamelessly, I play both sides of the field. When there's a Republican in office, I go to all my left-leaning friends and I'm like, yo, privacy. And when there's a Democrat in office, I go to all my right-leaning friends and I'm like, yo, privacy. I don't care. I'll play both sides of the field as long as it gets the privacy message out there. So I guess now that the political landscape has shifted, I guess I'm kind of looking forward to being able to share privacy stuff with more of my left-leaning friends. But other than that, there's really nothing specific that's kind of coming up for me, to be honest.
One thing that came to mind actually is, as you were talking, I am seeing genuinely, and this is already starting to happen and I think it's going to continue, there is a big movement for more private and local AI. And I think that's really exciting. Like there are people who are putting in some incredible work. I've already started using Jan.AI, open source, local. You can even like self-host certain models and then you can like link them and then it'll still kind of use a cloud model, but you host it. Crazy good. It's not going to be as good as maybe like the best model of ChatGPT or whatever, but I think for the value you get in terms of like quality to privacy, incredible. If you haven't tried Jan AI yet, give it a shot. No affiliation whatsoever. It's just a great service. And I think that if you're somebody who's just using Gemini, even if it's just occasionally, try out Jan. I mean, that's pretty much what I'm exclusively using now. And that way I don't have to feed any data to any of these companies. And it arguably might have a better impact on certain things as well. Companies you support, ethics, environment, yeah, all that good stuff. So I hope to see more of that.
Just to throw it out there, there's also GPT for all, which the thing I like about that one is you can upload a file for it to analyze. I haven't played with that.
I have seen GPT for all. It also looks really cool. I think all of these services are like moving in the right direction.
And then we'll backtrack to Parker's first question, which says, a lot of sites require a mobile number for registration these days. Do you have any tips on creating junk accounts in these cases when you live in a country that requires to show your government ID to get a prepaid card or subscription? Are there cheap ways to do that? For example, maybe getting a temporary phone number somehow and then reusing that number for several services, such as Google and Microsoft and so on. Theoretically, if I lived in a country that required ID, my pseudo, for example, is already pretty big on compartmentalization. So it's not really designed to be like a burner, like have a million different phone numbers, kind of like simple login, for example, in terms of email. But it's more designed to be like you create several different identities, like you have work and you have personal and you have shopping and you have this and that and the other. I would probably follow a similar model, assuming I had the funds. Like I would probably get 2 or 3 different SIM cards and see about just using those and compartmentalizing them the same way. I have my work phone number, I have my personal phone number, and then when I need to use one of these websites, I would use one of those. You say getting a temp phone number somehow. I mean, if you have access to that, yeah, that's ideal. Because that's kind of my question is, could you, I'm trying to think here, like maybe use a VPN, use the Aurora store and download like my pseudo or Google Voice. If it's a service that will accept an American phone number, then I don't see why you couldn't do that in theory. You might get some flags maybe if your IP address doesn't match the phone number maybe. I don't know. Like those are just kind of, there might be some pitfalls is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think those would be my 2 thoughts. Is first of all, are you able to get a hold of some kind of burner number service, like again, my pseudo, JMP, something of that nature, and register that? And if not, are you able to compartmentalize them? If none of those are options, then I would say you kind of just have to decide how important these services are to you. If you really need access to them, you're kind of just going to have to bite the bullet and do it. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how legal this is, so don't quote me, but maybe you can find a friend or something who's willing to set up the account for you and then give you the login info. Those are kind of the things I would be thinking about personally.
I think the closest thing to budget here, typically when something requires government ID and they require a phone number, it's normally a pretty bad combination because it means they're normally very restrictive. I guess I've seen it go both ways, where if they verify your ID, then they don't care as much about the phone number because they got your ID. So then those services will allow just random my pseudo alias numbers essentially. And I've also seen it go the other way, which was they're very picky about the ID being there, the KYC, so they also apply that kind of rigor to the numbers. So either way, I do have just kind of a phone that's shut down all day that just has a SIM card, cost me about $10 a month, and it just receives texts. It's kind of like my last resort when I can't get any other number to work. But I do not use the SIM card or the phone number that's on my daily phone for anything. Next up, we have David Johnson, and David Johnson has quite a few of them, and some of them we might actually be able to, unfortunately, kind of just X out because I don't think we have much to say, and we don't know everything. One of them, you asked for good FOSS options for managed link layer switches. Not something that I've really worked with. I haven't had a use case for switches yet, so it's not something I've looked into, unless, Nate, do you have any?
No, for audio listeners who maybe don't see this, not routers specifically. So if you're sitting there thinking like, dude, pfSense, DDWRT, like, come on. Like he specifically said not routers. I don't know anything for switches. I would just say I'm not normally one to buy into the political theater going on right now, but I know there's a lot of concerns about, was it TP-Link is a Chinese company?
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah, so I would maybe stay away from them just to be on the safe side. But other than that, I think this is one of those times when we'll turn it over to the community. And like, if you guys know anything, I think that'd be really cool to learn what's out there.
Yeah, and then the second question is privacy respecting alternatives to Google Apps script. I don't have any insight here, and I don't think Nate does either. So
I honestly don't even know what the app script is.
yeah, it's not something I've ever used before. So if you've ever used Google Apps script and you have development experience, but you know of privacy respecting alternatives, definitely leave them.
Oh, hold on. Reading it a little closer, I don't have an answer, but again, for like audio listeners, privacy respecting alternatives to Google Apps Script, you know of, that have an execution environment hosted in the cloud and can do things like automatically send emails at specific times with script generated content. So off the top of my head, I know what those words mean, but I have zero experience with what you're talking about. The closest thing I can think of would be maybe writing your own Python script in like a Raspberry Pi or something. But I know that's not feasible for everybody for a lot of reasons. And also I may be completely understanding or misunderstanding what you're talking about. So
leave any feedback if you have it. Now, the two questions that you left that I think we can comment on is what's a source of discounted used electronics for experimentation and tinkering as opposed to primary personal device use do you like most? Personally, I am huge into used markets. I think that you can find some crazy good deals if you're patient. I have a desktop that was probably almost $2,000 when it came out that I got for $200. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit older hardware, but it runs the few PC games that I try to boot up once every 6 months on it. I can't remember the last time I booted up. So I keep reading these Windows 10, Windows 11 stories, and I'm like, Unfortunately, I do feel like Craigslist's quality has kind of fallen over the years. I feel like a lot of people are flocking to Facebook Marketplace, which makes things a little tougher for me, but I still get a lot of good finds there. And I also just feel like, yeah, like buying refurbished, open box, renewed, whatever it's labeled as on different sites typically can get you literally the same product for cheaper. Almost anytime I buy something refurbished, I can't even tell that it's not new. And it can sometimes be like 30, 40, 50% off the regular price. Don't also discount devices you currently have, right? So if you're about to get a new phone, your old phone is now a tinkering device. And feel free to like play around with it, include it in your workflow in some unique way. So those are all kind of the strategies I've used. The other option, perhaps not for everyone, is make YouTube videos, get a lot of views, and have people send you review units. That's another way to get devices to tinker with, but not very accessible.
I actually don't really have a specific source. The only thing I want to mention that Henry mentioned is, and I've been pretty open about this when my previous phone exploded, Facebook Marketplace is objectively terrible, and I don't understand it. When I was looking for replacements to my old phone that exploded, somebody recommended like Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, you know what? As much as I hate Facebook, I hear good things about it. Let me just go ahead and see if I can find a good deal. I would look up like Pixel, and I would get returns for like iPhone, Samsung, Huawei, stuff that wasn't even phones. And I checked some of these listings to be like, are people just putting in crappy keywords? No, Marketplace just apparently doesn't know how to do search. It's objectively terrible. I don't understand why everyone sings its praises. So, but yeah, I agree. eBay, I've used eBay in the past to buy things with pretty positive results. Okay, the one thing that just popped into my head, just put out the words to your friends and family. Like I do that. I tell all my friends and family, I'm like, if you guys ever get rid of any phones, any computers, let me know before you toss them because I might be willing to pick them up. Oh, and sorry, the one last thing. There was a reply from another patron that I know you saw it, but I kind of wanted to shout it out for listeners. They said, this isn't a discounted used device, but you might want to check it out. Mecca.so/comment. I don't know anything about it for the record. I think David seemed pretty interested in it. So other listeners who are interested, you may also want to check it out. David's other question that we might have some input in says, have you or people you know used domains by proxy services? A number of whois lookups resolved to it, and it seems like it could be a privacy enhancing feature for personal custom domains. Henry and I had some discussion. We think you're talking about services like Najala, for example, where technically the provider owns the domain name and they're kind of just, I don't want to say leasing it to you, but they're like purchasing it on your behalf. So their name shows up on the whois and stuff. Like you said, that way it preserves privacy. I've never used them. The only one I knew of at the time was Najala, and they seemed really overpriced, to be totally honest. And it just didn't justify it for me at the time. These days, I'm pretty good about remembering to check that, like, whois guard. I also have a lot of concerns about running the new oil. I have a lot of concerns about like legal challenges. So I want to be able to prove that ownership if I ever have to go to court and prove this is my domain. I think if you're unlikely to face those kind of issues, I think at that point, the main question is trustworthiness. Do you trust the service, first of all, to respect your privacy, to not interfere with your domain, because technically they have the keys to the kingdom. And number two, to stay around for a while. Like, are they still going to be here in 1, 2, 5, 10 years, however long you plan to have that domain. But
the distinction here is that these services put their information on the Whois, and there's no Whois protection. So they are formally saying to the public, we own this domain, but we're essentially like behind the scenes renting it to this other person for their use. Whois protection, on the other hand, you are registering yourself as the owner of the domain. You own it, it's yours, but you're applying a guard so that the public can't see who owns it. So very important legal distinction. Realistically, not a big distinction for probably like a personal custom domain, which makes me say, if one's a lot cheaper than the other, just go with the cheap one. These services like Orange Website and whatnot are pretty pricey. Same thing with Nate, like, if you're running a business, especially a public business, it doesn't make much sense. And if anything, it can actually open up some interesting legal issues if you like don't formally own your own domain. And if we misinterpreted your question, I did see there was like a formal domains by proxy service. It's what it's formally called. Definitely let us know. And now we're going to go into Unshackled, who has 2 questions. And these are the
3, actually.
Oh, okay. So the first one is, have you seen the new Passport Prime by Foundation? And if so, what are your thoughts? It seems like an extremely solid security device to me, and the team behind it seems incredible. I have not got my hands on it yet, but my full-time job right now is with Cake Wallet. And if you didn't catch the news, Passport Prime is being released with Cake Wallet as being like one of the first third-party apps. So I'm working with the team that's building some of the first software that's going to be on the Passport Prime, which we're really excited about. It's all open source, and the hardware looks really nice. I just haven't got my hands on it, so I can't tell you how good it actually is to use yet. But on paper, it seems like a really exciting concept. I have never actually used a Passport device whatsoever from Foundation, so it's all very new to me, but it's exciting to see them especially expand to more things like different third-party services. So I'm excited for it.
I don't really have much to add. Seth for Privacy, he did interview on his podcast. He still does put out episodes kind of just whenever something interesting comes up that he wants to talk about. And he did interview Foundation about either the Passport or the Passport Prime. So I would say definitely check that out if you want to know more. Have either of you considered creating polycentric identities for your channels via futo-id/harbor.social? No, I haven't considered it. I've dipped my toes in GrayJ, and I really respect what it's doing, and I think it's super cool. There's so much going on. And for me, it's really difficult to keep track of everything that's going on and what it's doing. And I don't really know what polycentric IDs are. I don't understand why I would want one. And that's like no disrespect to polycentric IDs or GrayJ. It's just, again, it's got too much going on for me, and it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around. I think I might be getting old.
I'm looking into it. It looks like almost one of these services that tries to like centralize your identities around the internet via like a verification system. It seems like a cool concept. There's a lot of these. Like there's the ones with blockchain, and there's like the crypto version of these, and then there's the not crypto version of these. This one seems interesting. I just went to Harbor Social. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's good. I see the use case. I just don't see the use case beyond someone just buying a domain that's verifiably theirs and putting links to their social profiles on that domain. That's what we do. And I feel like what's kind of happening is, some people are setting it up on GrayJ, Harbor. Some people are setting up their identities on random domains, like on Unstoppable Domains. They have their own stuff there. And then, so I feel like it ends up just being a lot more scattered. That's kind of my concern, is like it works well within each ecosystem. But then, we get a ton of flack constantly. Well, why aren't you on this service? Why aren't you on this service? Like, guys, we don't have the time and energy to keep up with like the 50 different variations. I mean, the amount of Twitter alternatives that are happening like every week at this point is like insane. And they like everyone wants us to be on every platform all at once. And we wish we could, but it's just really hard to do that. I wish things were designed from the ground up to be scalable. I really like services, for example, like Gravatar. Gravatar is awesome because like you have a central profile photo, and any service that uses Gravatar will just automatically upload your new profile photo if you upload it through Gravatar. It's a way to like claim something that actually makes the rest of your life easier, if that makes sense. So I think services like that are really cool because they make things more efficient, they make things more practical, and they can centralize your identity a little bit more. But I don't see how this is better than just having your own website. But if there's something about it I'm not understanding, please let me know. This is based on just a super quick read of this. Nate just kind of talked about some of his experience. And one final thing to say about new platforms. I used to be on the team of like, oh, new platform that looks cool, sign up. We used to be on weird things like DTube, which went nowhere. There was a platform that was like a Web3 blogging platform that was tied to DTube that we were also on, and there's been so many services. Minds was one that we were on as
I
well,
was thinking
believe.
Minds. I never joined that as the new oil, but back when I first got into privacy and I was exploring different social media, I checked out Minds for about 2 minutes and I was like, oh, these are not my people at all.
And it's not even about the people. It's just like the services just didn't work well, and it takes a lot of time. Like, there's social media management tools out there that can consolidate this work and make it easier, but these services are so unpopular. They don't exist on these platforms. So you're pretty much asking to like upload to all these things. So I've taken a much more minimal approach, and that's what we do with this channel, YouTube PeerTube. You want something open source, you want something self-hosted, you don't want any tracking, we're going to give you the best, PeerTube. We own it, it's ours, there's no tracking, you get to use it in whatever client you want. And then we're also going to use the platform that gives us a ton of reach, which is YouTube. That's where we get new people, that's where we reach the masses, that's where we spread the message and get people educated. And there's like 50 services in between those two extremes. It's just a lot of effort to do that for every upload, I think. The last question, really quick, is what are our thoughts on Whonix? I think it's good. Those are kind of my thoughts. It's nice that it's a VM, very accessible. Anybody who pretty much has a desktop computer right now can try out Whonix. You don't need to get like a whole dedicated computer and, sit down, start praying, start, crossing your fingers and performing a ritual to like hope that it works with cubes.
I was going to say, like cubes. You're describing cubes right now, says the cubes user.
And like that is not the case with Whonix. Whonix is very accessible, very usable, still very extreme and advanced, and not something that a lot of people need. But the fact is that like even if you don't need it, go ahead. Like if you want to take away from this episode, go try out Whonix right now. It's really easy to try. Probably within 15 minutes, you can have a boot up operating system on your computer, and you can try it out and figure it out for yourself. It's a really cool project.
No, I totally agree. I really dig Whonix. The main reason I don't use it is because 99% of the time when I'm on my Windows computer, I'm doing intensive things, like system intensive things, like video editing or, recording of some kind. I want as few things open as possible. Number one, for distractions, because I get so distracted, as Henry knows, with all my rants, but also just processing power on my computer and the resources involved. So like, I love Whonix and I think it's great. And I'm a huge fan of it. Like Henry said, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but for the more tech savvy who really, really want good privacy, I definitely recommend it. I think it's great. I think it's a really good compromise. The thing I don't like about Tails is I have to like shut down my whole computer and boot into a dedicated operating system. And that's just really inconvenient for me. So as far as convenience goes, I think Whonix is a really good compromise between Tails and like the Tor browser. And then my other daily driver is Cubes, which has Whonix built in, and I route things through Whonix when I need to.
And then we did get 2 XMR chat people who sent us a couple messages here. So thank you both very much. The first one is from Nero, who said thanks. And then the other one is just XMR user who said keep up the good work. So we just got a little bit of encouragement over there. We've been getting a lot of good stuff on the XMR chat side of things. So thank you all for the support. And you can go ahead and also join them on XMR chat. Just to kind of recap this Q&A, it was a bit longer this week, but we had a lot more questions because we missed the last week. So we covered Parker's questions in terms of what we're looking forward to this year, government IDs and what that looks like, and phone number aliasing, used devices, domain by proxy services. And then we also talked about Fudo, Passport Prime, and Whonix. So a lot of stuff covered today. If you want to join the next Q&A, you can do it on Patreon or XMR chat. All the links are down in the description. We love the questions. We can't do this whole little version of this podcast without the questions. And it's kind of our way to give some perks so we can keep doing the podcast for free. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time.